It's time for the Daily Stand Up Podcast presented by AgileDad with your host, Lee Henson. Without any further ado, let's get started. Yeah, it's another one of those It's That Time Again episodes. I get these from time to time. This one is about carrying over work from one sprint to another. Now, I'm going to lay down one of the most interesting facts you'll probably ever hear. Ready? I have been helping teams do Scrum and Agile since 2005. And in that time frame, I have had a grand total, are you ready for this? Grand total of teams that I have coached, trained, or assisted carry over 3 items in total from one sprint to the next. I know what you're thinking. That sounds crazy, right? Mind blown. But it's true. One of the things that I teach my teams is the importance of understanding the amount of work you can consume during a sprint and the rule. So the golden rule is I would rather you finish one less item and have a little extra bandwidth to dedicate towards making everything higher quality than try to do a stretch goal every single sprint and not complete the work that you've committed to. One gives the impression that you're not working as hard and that you're not doing the things that you're being asked to do. Another indicates that you are stressed out. And I've seen teams back all the way down to 0 points just by always trying to, oh, you're so pathetic. Can't you at least do this many? I mean, I've seen teams back all the way down to 0 just trying to get it figured out because they're like, I can't do it. I can't meet this goal. It's an objective that I can't reach. So the question becomes, how do you handle carryover? What is carryover from one sprint to another? And for most organizations, let's just face it, it's inevitable. You've had work at the end of a sprint that was not complete. I think teams that are very experienced encounter this from time to time as well. It's not something that is uncommon. Yet, when people ask about how the incomplete work should be handled, or if it should be eliminated, or if it should go back to the backlog, or if we do a split, and where do the story points go, I think you see where I'm going with this. There's so much confusion and misunderstanding around this. I think it's about time that we clear it all up. So, by definition, anything that you are going to split or carry over from one sprint to another is incomplete work. It's work that's not done. So, for me, I tell teams all the time, if a team finishes, I don't know, if a team gets through working and they finish early, so they just finished their sprint, they finished a little bit early, the very first thing they tell me is, hey, I want to go to the next sprint and pull something in. And my answer is definitively no. I would prefer that you did not do that. What I want you to do instead is go get a head start on the first item in the next sprint. Now, you're probably asking yourself, what's the difference between those two statements? One means that I'm going to take an item that wasn't part of my original commitment, and at some point, once we have passed our sprint planning meeting, that we are going to pull in or insert a new item that was not reviewed by the team or was not included as part of the original commitment with the common knowledge and pretty much predictability that you're not going to finish it, so that you can take credit for the portion of the work that you did this sprint and then take credit for the remaining work in the following sprint. Here's a secret. No one should be keeping score. What do I mean by that? I tell teams all the time, just go get a head start on the first item in the next sprint. Now, here's the beauty. Guess what? If they finish it, if they finish the item, they can pull it in. They can pull that item into the sprint. No harm, no foul. Let's go. Right? I want to do that. If for some reason the team says, oh, we were unable to pull that item in or we were unable to finish it, guess what? The item was never pulled in to begin with. We met our original commitment and we got a head start on the first item in the next sprint, meaning that in the next sprint, there'll be less work to do. But here comes the fun part. We're not going to adjust the story points because that item still remained the same size. So let me give you a practical example so you can visualize this. Let's pretend we're painting a house and the house has 5 rooms. And our goal for this sprint is to finish painting the first room. Now, I know that's not real practical, but I think you get the gist of where I'm going with this. If the team finishes a bit early on the first room, I don't tell them, oh, good news, go tell the customer that now we're going to finish the second room. That would be ridiculous, right? I don't even bring it or raise awareness or bring it to anyone's attention. What I tell the team is, if you're careful and you finish the first room and it looks great and there's no defects or anything that you see that needs to be addressed, go ahead and get a head start on the second room. start getting it taped, start getting it set up, start getting it prepped. And what happens is, the homeowner's happy because, well, you got a head start on a second room, but no one's upset that you didn't finish the item that you pulled into that first sprint. So I hope that resolves. I hope that makes sense to you. So I think it's important for us to make sure we establish that relationship with the team. One, that we're not putting pressure on them to do more than they can actually do. And two, that we understand and that we're trying to allow them the opportunity to take on the work that they can do and address it and figure it out, right? So if they understand what they can do and they understand how they're going to work moving forward, it makes it so much easier for them to just get a head start on the next first item in the next sprint. Totally easier. All right. So let's get back in here. So the next thing that I thought of right here is that there are a lot of misconceptions, right? There are a lot of misconceptions about carryover work. So when you think about it, the number one misconception has to do with story points and velocity. People think that, oh, if I finish part of the work, I should get part of the credit as story points to show that I put in extra effort this sprint. Not necessary, right? That's like saying, oh, I was in the bathtub, but I only had time to do a partial bath. So I want to get credit for cleaning my left arm and my right leg. You're still not clean. You're not done, right? And I think that's the key. And people just need to get past that mental block, especially if the mental block is we're looking for, and I hear this all the time at companies, we expect our teams to focus on continuous improvement. And that means the velocity should increase every sprint. So then I asked myself, I said, that's great. I said, so every single day, if you run a mile, so if you're a mile runner and you run every single day, every day you should have 1 second less on your time because of continuous improvement, right? So that means over the course of 2 months, you should be able to speed up your mile time from, I don't know, 5.5 minutes to 4.5 minutes. And if you keep at it for another period of time, you'll be able to get down to 3.5 and then 2.5. And eventually you'll be running 100 miles an hour. We all know that's not true, right? We have capacities and limits to what we can do. And I think that the misconception is one of math. You're trying to figure out how you can squeak more into a sprint or trying to figure out how you can look more impressive. And the best advice I have is to say what you're going to do and do what you say. If you do those two things, that's going to look way more impressive than you trying to figure things out on a whim or on a fly. Let's go for another misconception. Another misconception is that during sprint planning, the team commits to completing all the selected backlog items, and that's part of their commitment. And they say, go team, and that's it. I got news for you. The team is committing. They really are. And I think that people don't take that part of it seriously. So for me, when I talk about this misconception, I talk about the team is not saying I'm committing to 20 story points, I'm going to get 15 done. It means I'm 75%. Doesn't work that way, right? When a team commits to do something, they either do it or they don't do it. They either finish it or they don't finish it. And this is good on many levels for many different reasons. It teaches the team the idea of commitment, which is correct, but it also teaches the organization not to overfill sprints. It teaches them that by limiting work in progress, that we'll actually get more done because we can be more focused and more dedicated to doing the work without a ton of shoulder taps and context switching. So I think that's something that's critical. If you think about what Scrum Guide says, the sprint goal is a single objective for a sprint. Although the sprint goal is a commitment by the developers, it provides flexibility in terms of the exact work needed to achieve it. So if they need to modify the way they're going to do things, there's a chance they could finish early, or there's also a chance they could finish a little bit late. And either way, it's fine, as long as we're adhering to the tenets of doing the best we can with the tools we have, right? Okay, so I think that makes a lot of sense. So the question everybody asks me then is it okay to split stories? Is it okay to carry over work? And my answer in general is no. I would rather see you say what you do and do what you say. I have people say, so you're telling us to undercommit and over-deliver. I say, no, I'm telling you to commit and deliver. Figure out what you can do and commit to that amount of work. This shouldn't be rocket science, and it should take you anywhere from 3 to 5 sprints to get it all figured out. But once you get it figured out, don't sit here and beat yourself up and try to change it and try to manipulate it. And what about this? Or this person's on vacation, or we're taking an extra day for a holiday. Just adjust the amount of work in a sprint. You'll be totally fine. And don't sit here and look at it as just a random number of items. You have to look at it as a commitment, because commitment is important. I think that that's what drives the team to consistently deliver value. So for me, if you're going to look at splitting stories, the best idea is to not do it. But in situations where you absolutely have to, just it's always better to teach the team over time to say, I'm going to get a head start on that first item in the next sprint, as opposed to I'm going to pull this item into the sprint and see if I can finish it. And I think the last piece is, once you do have the item that you're working on, don't try to take partial credit for it in this sprint and partial credit next sprint. Let it reside where it is. Let it reside in that next sprint. And over a course of 3 to 5 sprints, you might finish one item completely early and pull it into the sprint, and you'll see a bump in your velocity for that sprint. It doesn't mean it's a permanent bump and that you'll always be able to do that number of story points. But what it shows is that you've been working hard and that you'll take that extra bump. That's going to do it. I hope you enjoyed this episode. If you have a question regarding story points, estimation, velocity, forecasting, any of those things, feel free to reach out to us. Learn more at AgileDad.com. We would love to hear from you. And as always, we encourage you to stay healthy, stay well, and stay agile, my friends. Until next time, do take care.